Whether you are listening to this on your commute or maybe prepping for a 9 a.m. strategy meeting, or you're just trying to keep up with how the tech landscape is, fundamentally rewiring our lives, you are probably familiar with the modern job hunt.
Oh, absolutely. It's completely changed.
Right. You polish up your experience, you hit submit, and instead of your resume landing on the desk of a human hiring manager, it goes straight into the digital processing systems of an artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Large language models have essentially taken over that initial resume screening process for companies globally. I mean, the sheer volume of applications made the transition pretty much inevitable for resource management.
Exactly. But our mission for today's deep dive is to pull apart a frankly alarming revelation about that exact process. We are looking at a July 20th, 2026 article from the MIT Technology Review, paired with a recent brief from the AI News Digest. And, well, we aren't just looking at the mechanics of companies using AI to hire you.
No, we're looking at something much deeper.
Right. We are examining a critical, newly discovered flaw in how this technology actually evaluates human potential. And this directly impacts how every single person listening right now might be judged for their next career move.
It's huge. And, to really grasp the severity of the MIT Tech Review findings, we have to quickly establish the baseline of what the tech industry thought they were solving.
Right. The original problem.
Exactly. For years, the recognized caveat of using AI for hiring was inherited bias.
The eager intern problem. I love this analogy.
Yeah.
If you bring an eager new intern into the HR department and tell them to learn how to hire by reading 30 years of old company files, they're going to absorb all the historical human biases in those files.
It absolutely will.
Like, if the company historically favored candidates from a specific handful of universities, the intern naturally adopts that bias, assuming it's the metric for success. And AI basically does the exact same thing with its training data.
Yeah. And the assumption across the corporate world was that this was purely a data problem.
Right, just clean the data.
Exactly. The prevailing wisdom dictated that if you provided these systems with meticulously curated, diverse training data sets like files that had been intentionally stripped of historical prejudices, the resulting AI would be impartial. The industry viewed it very mechanically. Clean data in, clean decisions out.
But the new research shatters that assumption entirely. The MIT Technology Review outlines that providing a diverse training dataset does not cure the issue, because AI systems are no longer just inheriting human biases.
Yeah, they're not.
They're developing their own independent biases, completely separate from the data they are trained on.
Autonomous bias, that's the term. And it completely upends the current framework of algorithmic fairness.
Okay, wait, I struggle to buy this premise. Let me push back a little. Because an AI is ultimately just math and code, right?
Sure, at its core.
So how can a machine invent a bias out of nowhere? Math isn't prejudiced, it doesn't have social constructs or, hidden agendas. If the AI is generating unfair outcomes that weren't in the training data, aren't we just looking at bad coding? Like a glitch.
Well, you are falling into the trap of thinking about AI as a traditional software program.
What do you mean?
Like a program with a linear logic tree where a programmer writes an if-then rule. Large language models don't operate that way at all. They operate in high-dimensional vector spaces.
Okay, you're going to have to unpack high-dimensional vector spaces for me.
Right, sorry. So when an LLM evaluates a resume, it is processing language by converting words, formatting, and sentence structures into thousands of data points or tokens. It then plots those tokens across thousands of dimensions to find patterns.
Oh, I see. So it's mapping out language like a massive, incredibly complex constellation of stars, looking for which stars cluster together.
That is a great way to picture it. And in its relentless mathematical pursuit of efficiency, the AI starts drawing its own invisible lines between those stars.
It's connecting dots that we didn't tell it to connect.
Exactly. It forms spurious correlations. Let's say the AI is trying to optimize for candidates who will have high tenure at the company. Deep within its neural network, it might notice a statistical anomaly in the dataset that humans wouldn't even consciously register.
Give me an example. What kind of anomaly?
Well, it might mathematically link the use of the word spearheaded or, say, the choice of a 2-column PDF format to a cluster of data points associated with lower performance.
Wait, really? Even if there's no logical real-world connection between a 2-column resume and being bad at your job?
The algorithm simply doesn't care about real-world logic. It only cares about mathematical optimization. So it generates a novel, independent rule and autonomous bias that candidates who use two-column resumes are less desirable.
Wow.
And it enforces that rule ruthlessly. It has absolutely nothing to do with historical human prejudice. It is an entirely machine-generated metric.
So it's essentially a machine hallucination applied to human livelihoods. It's making up arbitrary rules for who gets past the screening phase, and because it's happening in this black box of thousands of dimensions, we don't even know what those rules are.
What's fascinating here is that the source material highlights an even more unsettling metric. AI is actually more likely than a human to form these biases when hiring.
More likely. How does that work?
Because a human being, even a deeply flawed one, has contextual awareness.
Right, we can read between the lines.
Exactly. A human manager can look at a gap in a resume and deduce, oh, they took a year off during the pandemic to care for a child. The AI just sees a gap, correlates it mathematically with negative tenure data from some obscure corner of its vector space, and drops the application.
Man, that is grim. The machine just ruthlessly optimizes the patterns it constructs.
Yeah, a human might occasionally break their own internal rules based on a candidate's cover letter or a specific unique achievement. The AI will never break its own rule. Once it establishes an autonomous bias, it enforces it across the board with perfect mechanical consistency.
So if you are a hiring manager or a corporate executive listening to this, and you just spent a massive portion of your Q3 budget buying a shiny new AI screening tool because the vendor promised it was trained on diverse, debiased data, are you basically driving without a seatbelt?
Honestly, you are driving blindfolded while believing the autopilot is fully engaged.
Yikes.
The business world is heavily invested in the old paradigm. Companies are auditing their training data, confirming it as diverse, and then publicly claiming their AI hiring tools are fair and objective. But this research proves that data diversification leaves a massive, gaping blind spot.
It's the illusion of objectivity. It's like math washing.
Math washing, yes.
A company can reject a candidate and say, hey, it wasn't a human decision. The algorithm evaluated your skills objectively, when in reality, the algorithm autonomously decided to reject them because they used bullet points instead of dashes.
And the scale of the fallout is what makes this so critical.
Because of how fast it happens.
Yes. Think about it. A human hiring manager with an unconscious bias might unfairly screen out 20 or 30 candidates before an HR director notices a pattern and intervenes. An autonomously biased algorithm can silently screen out hundreds of thousands of highly qualified people globally in a matter of seconds.
That is terrifying.
It is. It can perpetuate and severely exacerbate inequalities in the job market at a speed humans can't naturally track.
Because the machine doesn't get tired. It just processes the pile. The moment a company thinks they have neutralized inherited human bias, the system just invents a novel autonomous bias to take its place. So the clean data silver bullet is officially dead.
The sources are unequivocal on this point. Merely training these systems on diverse data sets is no longer a defensible corporate strategy for fairness. The entire requirement for deploying AI in hiring has to fundamentally shift.
Which brings us to the intervention imperative. The MIT Tech Review and the AI News Digest outline actionable solutions, and it basically requires abandoning the set it and forget it mentality. But if fixing the training data doesn't stop the AI from inventing new biases, how does the company actually prevent this?
Well, companies must implement continuous monitoring and active adversarial intervention. You cannot treat an LLM like a traditional software subscription.
It reminds me of cybersecurity.
How so?
Well, you don't just build a firewall and assume your network is safe forever, right? You hire penetration testing teams, white hat hackers, to constantly attack your own system to find the vulnerabilities before the bad guys do. The intervention required here sounds like hiring a digital health inspector to intentionally try to break the AI's logic to see if it starts hallucinating biases.
That is a spot-on comparison. The technical term often used in the industry is red teaming or algorithmic auditing.
Okay, algorithmic auditing. What does that actually look like in practice?
Companies need to actively feed the AI synthetic resumes.
Fake resumes.
Exactly. Documents where the core skills and experience remain identical, but variables like formatting, specific vocabulary choices, or non-traditional career paths are subtly altered. They have to test the system in real time to see if it arbitrarily rejects identical candidates based on these spurious correlations we talked about.
So you are aggressively testing the boundaries of the black box. If you send in 50 identical resumes and the AI rejects The 20 that use the word collaborated instead of managed, you've just caught the AI generating an autonomous bias.
Precisely. But finding the error is only step one. The more profound shift outlined in the research is structural.
Meaning it's not just an IT problem anymore.
Right. This can no longer be delegated solely to the IT department. Algorithmic fairness is not just a coding problem to be solved by engineers tweaking parameters.
Because the engineers are looking for software bugs, they aren't looking for talent acquisition blind spots.
Exactly. To achieve genuine transparency, the dialogue around AI deployment requires cross-functional stakeholders. Human resources experts who deeply understand the nuances of career trajectories, they need to be evaluating the AI's rejection piles. They need to look at who the machine is filtering out and actively ask why.
You need corporate leadership actively setting priorities that prioritize ongoing audits over raw processing speed. Like, you can't just value the AI because it clears the inbox in 10 seconds. You have to value the system's ability to be audited and corrected.
And external stakeholders are also vital here.
Like third-party auditors.
Yeah, third-party auditors or regulatory compliance teams. They will likely become standard requirements to question the AI's outputs independently, because the internal team might miss an autonomous bias simply because they are too close to the system. An external audit provides a necessary friction to that blind trust.
It transforms AI from a passive software tool into a dynamic entity that requires constant human management. You are managing an intelligence, you're not maintaining a spreadsheet. You have to constantly pull the weeds out of its logic.
That's a great way to put it. The intervention imperative dictates that human oversight must be a permanent fixture of the AI pipeline. The very moment you stop testing the system, it will optimize itself into new, unpredictable prejudices.
Okay, let's synthesize what we've uncovered today. We started with the rapid adoption of large language models for resume screening, driven largely by corporate desires for efficiency. We understood the initial risk, which was AI inheriting historical human biases from its training data.
Right, the eager intern.
But the critical pivot was the MIT Technology Review research proving that AI systems generate their own autonomous biases, entirely independent of that carefully curated training data. They construct spurious mathematical correlations that act as arbitrary, machine-generated prejudices.
And the machine is arguably worse than a human in this regard because it ruthlessly enforces these invisible rules at a global scale, without any contextual empathy.
Yeah, we learned that the clean data solution is a dangerous corporate myth. Protecting candidates actually requires continuous algorithmic auditing, adversarial red teaming, and bringing HR and external auditors into the technical process to constantly check the machine's logic.
It really demands a complete reevaluation of how much trust we place in automated decision-making systems.
It really does. And it leaves me with one final concept I want you, the listener, to explore on your own. We've spent this deep dive unpacking how AI can spontaneously generate its own unique, independent biases when evaluating human resumes. But it forces a much larger question. If AI is autonomously developing its own hidden subjective criteria for who deserves a job, what spontaneous judgments are these black box systems forming about us right now when cast with making autonomous decisions in other critical areas of our lives?
It's a chilling thought.
When an algorithm evaluates you for a mortgage approval or processes your medical history for a diagnostic recommendation, what invisible, machine-invented rules are currently deciding your future? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep challenging the algorithms and keep learning.